Hello, it's Grandma Karen. Now that you have done your homework and learned about some of the buttons and dials on your sewing machine, we are ready to learn about the presser foot and how to use your hands to sew. You will practice sewing on paper in our next lesson. In this video, we will be looking at the Bernina 930. Your sewing machine came with an accessory box. It looks like this. There are lots of small things in the box. Today we will look at the presser feet. Be careful to always put things back in the box. They are easily lost and are expensive to replace. Your machine came with about 10 different presser feet. There's one for putting in zippers, one for making buttonholes, and other special sewing tasks. Today we will look at the all-purpose foot. It is also called the zigzag foot. Your guidebook calls it the presser foot for green stitches. I will call it the all-purpose foot. This is a close-up of the all-purpose foot. Each presser foot has a number on it. The manual will tell you the name of each foot by its number. The presser feet that came with your machine have an engraved number at the top. The all-purpose foot is the 000 foot. If you buy a new foot for this older machine, you will notice that the numbers may have changed and that they are written on the front of the foot. The arrows point to the foot number. If you need to replace a presser foot or want to buy another specialty foot, tell the Bernina dealer that you have an old Bernina and the model number. They will be happy to help you find the correct foot that you need. The new presser feet do not fit on the old models. Replacement presser feet may have a different number. If you are lucky enough to have an old Bernina and a new Bernina, it is easy to get the feet mixed up. Look at the top of these presser feet. The feet on the left are the older style Bernina foot. Notice the two square-shaped bumps at the top of the foot, kind of like a fork. The foot on the right is for newer, after 1980s, Bernina models. The bump at the top of the foot is one continuous rectangle shape, not a fork. This is how you tell the difference if the feet get mixed up from different models. There are a few things that the all-purpose or zigzag foot have. First, the yellow arrow is pointing to an indented line in the front of the foot. It is directly in front of the needle in the center of the foot. We will use this as a guideline when you sew in the next lesson. The red arrow is pointing to an oval hole cut out in the foot. This is where the needle goes into the fabric. The green line points to a slit in the middle of the foot. This is where you put the thread under the presser foot when you start to sew. Even the bottom of the foot can tell you a lot. The foot on the left has the oval hole found on the zigzag or all-purpose foot. The oval hole has room for the needle to swing left and right to do a zigzag stitch or a decorative stitch. The foot on the right has a very narrow hole. This is not the all-purpose foot, it is the straight stitch foot. These are not zigzag or all-purpose feet. Some of these may have come with your machine. Others are optional feet that you can buy. Notice that each has a number on it. We will talk about some of these in later lessons. Here are some close-up photos. At the top of the presser foot there is a cone-shaped hole. On the sewing machine there is a little ice cream cone shape that is pointing down. This is where the presser foot gets attached to the machine. Remember the presser foot clamping lever from our last lesson? The green arrow is pointing to it. It is used to hold the presser foot in place. It's a good idea to have a small plate or bowl next to your machine when you sew. You place small parts on the plate so they don't get on the floor. This plate has the presser foot that I took off the machine. I also use this to put small pieces of thread and fabric on, sort of like a small trash plate. We take the presser foot off when we change to another foot, when we clean and oil the machine, and when we change the needle. Let's put a foot on now. To put the foot on the machine, we need to make sure that the presser foot is in the up position and that the needle is also in the up position. And then we're going to take this little cone shape here. We're going to tilt our foot to the side and then straighten it up on there. And then we're going to put the clamping lever down. And that's how you put that on there. Then to take it off, you're going to have to make sure that the presser foot is in the up position. Lift up the little clamping lever, turn it to the side, and take it off. It can get confusing when I say foot. When I say foot in the videos, I am talking about the presser foot that goes on here. When I'm talking about the foot control or the foot pedal, I will call it by its first name, the foot control or the foot pedal. Now that you understand presser feet, you are almost ready for the next lesson when we will start to sew. But first we need to talk about something you will use to sew every time. And that's your hands. Each of your hands has a job to do when you're sewing. It doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, each has its own job. Your left hand is the steering hand. When you steer a car, you steer gently and just a little bit at a time. We don't jerk the wheel to make corrections. It is a small, gentle change in our steering. As you sew, you will do the same thing. You will steer or guide the fabric so you can sew on a line or sew with the edge of the fabric along a line on your sewing machine. It is important to be accurate. When you steer, you use your left hand and will steer gently and move or steer the fabric a little bit at a time to make corrections. Your right hand is the straightening hand. One thing the right hand does is take out pins, even if you're left-handed. The right hand or straightening hand prevents the fabric from folding and puckering on the bottom of the seam. It makes sure that the edge of the fabric are matching up. It rearranges the fabric and prevents it from falling off the table. It arranges the fabric, or paper in this case, so it doesn't bump into the right side of the throat of the machine. It helps so the fabric doesn't get caught where it shouldn't. Understanding what your straightening hand, the right hand, does may seem confusing for now. You don't need to remember all of this. You will gradually learn what your hands do as you sew. I will remind you as you learn, and your mentor will also remind you. Just remember, left hand steers or guides and right hand straightens and removes pins. We will talk about and practice this in coming videos. You've heard me describe a lot of things today, but your homework is not very hard. For your homework, you need to show your teacher, your parent, or mentor that you understand and can do the following things. You can pause the video to do this, or you can take a picture of the homework. 1. Find the all-purpose foot. 2. Take the presser foot off the machine. 3. Put the foot back on the machine. 4. Tell your mentor what your left hand does while you're sewing at the sewing machine. 5. Tell your mentor what your right hand does while you're sewing at the sewing machine. I'm excited because in our next lesson, we will get to practice all you have learned so far. You're going to sew on paper with no thread. We will also talk about sewing fast and sewing slow, and you will practice using your steering hand and your straightening hand. See you next time. And here's a note for the mentor. For the next lesson, you will need to set up the sewing machine on the table with the chair that you and your student found to be the best place. Have the sewing machine unthreaded. No thread in the bobbin, no thread on top. Print out the 3 practice sheets or look at them and draw your own. They are listed under the link for video 4.